Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of Gridiron 5. I don't know.
I don't know how we're going to do it. It's a crossover episode,
Crossover
everybody.
between Gridiron Gridlock and Forever Power 5. We could also we can name it after New York City traffic, Forever Gridlock.
There we go. It works for us.
So we do have the Forever Power 5 background. So this is college football is almost over, and so is my voice. It looks sorry. And this show is just going to be mostly about predictions, but mostly the college football playoff predictions. But you can follow this show at FP5ETB on Twitter and Instagram, and on TikTok at Forever Power 5, no caps or spaces. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DMart, Will at Will Charlton H13, Zan at Zain Bando 99, and Trevor at TWilly624. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. There's Gridiron. You can plug Gridiron. Gridiron Gridlock.
it's
a tongue twister.
The tongue twister on that one. Gridiron Gridlocks. We normally stream our stuff over the weekend, mainly on Saturdays before the college football season. Since the college football season is starting to wrap up, we're going to start to transition, ladies and gentlemen, into the college basketball scene leading up into March Madness. So we got some good stuff coming for you guys in the new year. But first things first, we got to get through the college football season.
Is there a social media account to plug?
There's no social media account for it at this time, so can't really throw an ad for it.
All right. So first we have the Fiesta Bowl, which is happening, which is starting about an hour from now, like right after we're done. Miami is giving 3.5 against Ole Miss. The over-under is, I think it's actually up to 52.5, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the public seems to be really, really high on Miami in this game. It seems like everybody, I mean, look, I don't think either team has a ton of pressure on them. Neither team was supposed to be here. But I think the public is really, really high on Miami. And the public has been really, I feel like the public, ever since, it almost, I think it's in a weird way kind of similar to how the public felt about Ole Miss, Georgia.
Yeah,
I think it sounds like they're almost, okay, now the line, according to DraftKings, is up to 53, not the line, the over-under is up to 53.5. The over-under is going way up. Now, I will say both teams, I think both of these teams are amazing stories. Really, really great stories. I mean, Miami, they barely snuck into the playoff. They beat Texas A&M. They beat the number one team, the number 2 team in the country, the team that was the number 1 team in the country for most of the season, which was also an amazing story. And Miami, they did it all by holding. They did it mostly with their defense. They did it by winning the line of scrimmage, is how Miami did it. And I just think that what Mario Cristobal has done this year, even though I've been critical of him in the past, son of a bitch, even though I've been critical of him in the past, he's really just done a great job. And I really feel happy for all the players.
For the most part, if you look at it, it's the game how they played against Ohio State. I think a lot of people knew it was going to be a defensive battle, but more people would think that Ohio State would be able to shut down Miami's offense, and it was just going to be like a case of separations and turnovers, but there was really no turnovers outside of the one pick that Ohio State threw, which kind of unraveled it. Because if you subtract that pick 6, the score would be 17-14, and Ohio State most likely would find a way to tie it. But since they don't have a field goal kicker, they would probably go up and score a touchdown, as we ended up seeing for multiple occasions throughout their playoff run.
Yeah, although the flip side, though, is Miami also ended up fumbling at the goal line, and they should have scored there. So the flip side is Miami also could have won by a bigger margin. So, it kind of goes both ways with that. I mean, the thing with Ohio State is, and I'm not going to call Ohio State frauds because I think that's stupid. I think calling teams frauds just because they lose is stupid. I mean, that would be like calling 31 NFL teams frauds because only one wins the Super Bowl. Like, it just gets really stupid. But I do think Ohio State may have been a little bit of a product of their schedule, which is an issue with the super conferences. Teams having, like, there being 18 teams in the Big Ten and no real mechanism for scheduling outside of the traditional rivalries. I think that is an issue. Like, Ohio State avoided, like, all the top teams in the Big Ten in the regular season, pretty much. And I think that Ohio State was a little bit like A&M this year, a little bit, in the sense that I'm not going to say it's true, but you can reasonably argue that they were just a product of riding high on a favorable schedule. And every time Ohio State has been tested, they really have come up short this year. I mean, I don't want to make everything about Ohio State, but that's just kind of how everything kind of worked out this year. Similar thing with A&M in a weird way. Like, A&M had a few really good wins. They dominated a lot of their schedule, but like towards the end of the year, it was just like they haven't played a good game since like before Thanksgiving.
And it's like, not like I said, not to harp on Ohio State, but Miami in the ACC had a train wreck of a year, and we thought they were going to get left out. Now, they're one game away from reaching the national championship game when other people saying that Notre Dame should be in over Miami. But then you have the head-to-head, the whole debate with the whole committee. It's just a large snowball effect that we're witnessing. And now, can Miami get the job done tonight and then go on possibly playing Indiana? But who knows what the other game is going to look like, because it's hard to beat a team twice in the same calendar year, going back with Oregon and Indiana. So we got really interesting games that should be close, but at the same time, like, the margin of error for these teams is basically slim to none if you're trying to win these games.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, I think that the interesting thing about this game is that the over-under seems a little high for a Miami game. Miami held A&M to 3 points and Ohio State to 14. So they held two very high-powered offenses to a combined 17 points. And the over-under in this game is 53.5. Seems a little high for, I think seems a little high of an over-under for a Miami game. I think that the higher scoring this game is, the more favorable it is to Ole Miss. And the lower scoring, it's much more it's much more favorable to Miami.
I think for Ole Miss, I think the line is based off how Ole Miss played against Georgia and using a bias that Georgia has a solid defense, and them dropping, I think, was it like 39 points to pull out a victory in this? So that's why the line is slightly higher on the, it's going to be a shootout, but the defenses will make like a couple key stops here and there, but there's really going to be no defense if you're allowing almost a 54-point, line that we're dealing with.
Well, I think Miami's defense, at least in the playoffs, has proven to be better than Georgia's defense. Agreed. Georgia does have a good defense. I think some of it is a little bit perception because that's just how we think of Georgia, but it's not the same team from 3-4 years ago. I think the thing with Georgia is, yes, they do have a good defense, though it's not as good as it once was. But but Georgia does get into a lot of shootouts. I mean, this year, against all the good teams they played, except maybe Alabama, everybody they played was a shootout, including against Ole Miss, including against Tennessee, which wasn't even that good of a team. I mean, Georgia, whenever Georgia plays a good enough offense, they end up getting into a shootout. And that's just been the case pretty much all of this year. That hasn't been the case with Miami. Like, Georgia has not been able to hold an offense like Ohio State or an offense like Texas A&M. I know they haven't played either team, but they haven't held an offense like that to just like 3 points or 14 points. That hasn't happened with Georgia. So I think Miami's defense, from the way that they're playing right now, seems to be a little better than Georgia's defense. Like, I just don't think that this game will be as much of a shootout as it was. Chances are it won't be as much of a shootout as the Sugar Bowl was. I mean, I think that the interesting thing I think the biggest issue that Ole Miss has ultimately is the coaching. That's the biggest issue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I give Pete Golding a lot of credit, and he's done a really good job so far. And he did a really good job beating Georgia. But I mean, Lane Kiffin, and I understand, it's the same team that Lane Kiffin built, but without your main play caller, that has to be eventually that's got to catch up to you at some point. On some level, I think that might eventually catch up to you. And that's my biggest concern with Ole Miss in this game, which is, all right, Miami, they at least have their head coach. Ole Miss doesn't have their head coach. But I think the most, because I look at this line, it's 3.5. It's not just a pick 'em. If I were picking straight up, I would think Miami's going to win because they more than likely will. But I think that if the ultimate X factor is going to be Trinidad Chambliss, if Trinidad Chambliss can look like he did against Georgia and make big plays the way that he did, I mean, Ole Miss, I think, has a really, really good chance to win this game outright. If Ole Miss's offense really gets going like it did against Georgia, if they run the ball well, if they do even, like, they don't even have to look as good as they did against Georgia. But if they can do like half as well as they did, as their offense looked, I think they have a really, really good chance to win this game. But I think it's going to be a real challenge because I think right now Miami's defense looks like it's on another level than Georgia's defense. Like, I just think it's too obvious.
It's not like a giveaway, but at the same time, their only missing piece, like you said, Nick, is the head coaching position. And we've seen the argument before where you lose a star player, the team is not exactly the same. But when you remove the head coach, now it's like you cut off the brain, but the body's still functioning for the most part to
sort of
get things through. But at the end of the day, I think they're playing the underdog mentality where like everyone's counting us out. Our head coach left us when we're on the cusp of possibly winning a national championship. And to them, it's just like, let's get there, win the whole thing, make it the biggest F you out there and saying you should have stayed and finished the job.
Yeah. I think that it's, I mean, look, I think it's a little bit like that. Like you said, I think it's more like, I don't think it necessarily has to be like, I don't think Ole Miss is that much worse without Lane Kiffin calling the plays. I think they're a little bit worse otherwise, but I don't think it's the equivalent of Ole Miss losing Trinidad Chambliss. I think that would be much more, like something like that would be a much bigger deal because it's still the same team that Lane Kiffin built. And most of coaching in college football is not play calling. Most of it is building the team. Like, you know, I don't think the battle between who the best and worst, the difference between the best college coaches and mediocre coaches is play calling, although that's a part of it. It's mostly the team that you build. And it's still the same team that Lane Kiffin built. So I don't think they're that much worse than they were. In fact, I think that Ole Miss looked the worst maybe in September when they were pulling off a lot of, like, when they were playing a lot of lousy teams and had a lot of close calls, like against some just like Arkansas, Washington State. I mean, that's when Ole Miss was at their worst. Right now, I think they might actually be at their best. They look I think they look better now than they did earlier in the season. Not because Lane Kiffin left, in spite of that, but right now, I think Ole Miss is actually in really, really good form right now. I think it seems like from the way that they look. The other thing is also just that Ole Miss has the least amount of pressure in this game. They have less pressure on them than Miami does. And the other thing, and the thing that was interesting to me about the Sugar Bowl is that Ole Miss, Georgia. I mean, look, Ole Miss was down 9 points at halftime. And at that point, we all kind of thought the game was over. I mean, they had this terrible clock management at the end of the first half, and where the wide receiver didn't run out of bounds, and maybe if he did, they could have kicked a field goal to maybe cut the lead down to one possession, and they just left points on the table. And at that point, we were all like, yeah, they're not coming back from this. But it was the opposite. They did to Georgia what Georgia usually does to other teams, which is coming back in the second half. Georgia won games coming back in the second half, including against some lousy teams in the SEC. It's like their second half is what saved them. I don't know what Kirby Smart's giving these players in the locker room, but like that's what Georgia has always done. Ole Miss did that to Georgia, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like they did that to Georgia. And I think that it might be a little harder to do that against Miami. It might be a little harder to do that against Miami if Miami is a little more buttoned up than Georgia right now. Because Georgia, I thought they looked really good, but this year towards the end of the year, but they were a little shaky.
Yeah, but like you said with Miami, you got to button up. That defense is coming after you with pressure. The edge rushers for Miami is just going to make it such a long game. You got to get the ball out quick. Slant routes. I don't think you can even do much play action because I don't think the line's going to hold up that well.
I don't know. I mean, look, Miami's been winning games with the line of scrimmage, but I'll say this. Ole Miss's offense is similar in style to SMU's offense, which gave Miami fits. Now, I'm not saying Miami's the exact same team that lost to SMU. I'm not saying they lose to SMU today if they play it on a neutral field. But it is that style of play that really is where Miami struggles. And so I think Ole Miss's offense just their style can give Miami a lot of trouble because that's really all football is. It's a matchup. It's not as simple as one team's better than the other. It's just like it's kind of a matchup thing. And I think that Ole Miss's offense can definitely, because it's a similar style to SMU's offense, but better. So I also look at it on that side too, where Ole Miss's offense, like that style, it's just not a good matchup for Miami.
They'll definitely have to look at it. It might be, like you said, second half adjustments. Miami finds a way to clamp down and have a good, solid third quarter. But it's one of these games where you got to play 4 quarters of football, easy in, easy out, as cliche as it sounds. But also, can you reduce the amount of mistakes that you go in through this entire game? You don't want to get that lousy, delay of game that backs you up. Now you're 1st and 15. And now you basically are trying to catch up for the rest of the game because you got that penalty.
Yeah, ultimately, this game is going to be decided by whose terms is this game going to be. And you're right. I think that certain penalties, certain just third downs are just going to have a huge impact on this game because if this game is a shootout, if there's going to be a lot of offense, Ole Miss is probably not just cover. I think they'll probably win because Miami, they win games with the line of scrimmage. They're not winning shootouts nearly as much. I mean, that's how they beat Ohio State, by running the ball really, really effectively. If Miami can run the ball really effectively and play from ahead, they're going to win. Ole Miss, I think they can play from behind. Ole Miss, I don't like if Miami falls behind in this game, they're going to be at much more of a disadvantage than Ole Miss playing from behind. And because, Miami, that's just how their offense is. They're not Ole Miss is a little bit like they're almost a little bit like Alabama, except their offense is much better, much more well-rounded. Like Alabama, in some ways is more comfortable playing from behind than playing from ahead because they don't run the ball effectively. They pass a lot. It's a similar thing with Ole Miss, except they actually run the ball much better than Alabama does. But I don't think Ole Miss will, even if Miami is ahead, they'll never really be out of this game. Because if Miami's winning, I have a feeling the game is low scoring, and all Ole Miss really has to do is get some one or two really, really good drives to get back in this game.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be out whatsoever, but I think if Miami gets like an early turnover to ride that momentum, it might to start to slowly unravel this game. But like you said, Ole Miss can claw right back in it with a couple, one or two good drives, and they close down the margin. They're only down by, let's say 10 points at half or underneath 10. There's a chance they'll definitely try to make something interesting in the third, depending if they, end up receiving in the second half. If they're receiving in the second half, I probably guarantee within the first three drives in the third quarter, they'll probably get a touchdown and make it a three-point game.
Yeah. So let's get into our picks in this game. So my pick is I'm taking Ole Miss plus 3.5 for a few reasons. First of all, like I said before, their style of play. I don't think it's a good matchup for Miami's defense. The other is I think they have less pressure than Miami does. I mean, neither team has much pressure, but I think Ole Miss has a little bit less pressure. And I just think that if Ole Miss, if Trinidad Chambliss looks like he did against Georgia, which I think he will, not as good maybe, but if he can play like he did against Georgia, I think Ole Miss will cover this number. And I'm not going to take an over-under, but I do think this over-under is a little bit telling to me because it looks a little high. Like if the total ends up somewhere around this number, I think Ole Miss has a really, really good chance.
For my take, I kind of like Miami. Miami's just shutting down the key offenses of Ohio State and Texas A&M, who've been, I would say A&M's offense has just been high flying, but they weren't a physical team. And we saw that when they first versed Miami, only getting 3 points. But we also saw that same Texas A&M team basically claw back from the jaws of defeat against South Carolina of all teams in the SEC, which was bad alone. But Miami prevented that from happening and a score of 10-3. But then you also flip it to Ohio State. That defense found ways to shut teams down and held teams with scoring basically not even a touchdown the entire game outside of Indiana. But Miami found a way to keep their offense driving down the field against Ohio State. So those two data points alone just shows you how, I wouldn't say well-rounded this Miami team is, but how versatile of it, just clamping down teams that can score relatively quickly and minimizing that margin so they can get a nice little old-fashioned dog shootout for the most part.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The way I see it also, though, is that, look, it was also really, really windy in College Station, and it was very, very hard to move the ball. The other is I don't think Texas A&M was really in good form at that point in the season. They built up a good resume. They had a win against Notre Dame, but like I said before, they haven't really even played a good game since before Thanksgiving. Like at that time, I don't know how good Texas A&M really was. And I also am not to take anything away from Miami. And also, I think they looked really good against Ohio State, obviously, only holding them to 14 points. But I feel like every time Ohio State played like a really, really strong defense, they were shut down this year, just like they were against Miami. And they were just riding high against a whole bunch of mediocre teams in the Big Ten. So, I think Ole Miss's offense might be on a different level right now. I mean, look, Ole Miss just put up 39 points. In fairness, really 37 because the game ended in a safety. But 37 points against Georgia. I don't know if Ohio State or A&M really could have done that at this point in the season. But, I mean, look, Ohio State has a whole bunch of really, really great players on offense. I mean, they have the most talent of any team on offense, but I don't really know about either one of those offenses. Like, I think Ole Miss right now might just be a little tougher for Miami's defense. I mean, look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like Miami blows them out and I look stupid. But I just, the way I see it is I feel like the public is so high on Miami and is doubting Ole Miss again, just like they doubted them against Georgia. And I'm going to go with Ole Miss again. Like, that's just how I a lot of times when the public is on one side, you just got to go with you got to
opposite of the grain.
All right. Peach Bowl. Oregon versus Indiana. Indiana's favored by 3.5. Not that it really makes that much of a difference anyway. Indiana minus 3.5. Now, what's interesting about this game is Indiana already beat Oregon. And people always say it's really tough to beat the same team twice in a calendar year. And that's true. But I think that's mostly true for like good teams. I don't necessarily think that's true about great teams. And Indiana is a truly great team. Truly a great team. One of the best I've ever seen. Not LSU, not Joe Burrow's LSU team, but not the 2018 Clemson team, but I think they're really up there. And if any team can beat the same team twice in the same calendar year, I would say it's Indiana.
And like, since when they played each other, it's not like they're close. Like, Oregon played Indiana in the Big Ten championship game, and that data point would be so much smaller, which will drive in like you can't beat the same team, at least 3 times in the same year. But now, since it's so far spread out, you got so many more tweaks, adjustments from the last time that you played. And on top of that, Indiana was on the road and pulled it off and won by 10. Yep. So it's like, it wasn't one of those victories where it was a last second, drive to win it. They took care of business on the road, and that kind of sprungboard them up closer to being number 1 in the nation, outside of having the committee favoring Ohio State as a 1 team. But then you got the head-to-head with Ohio State, shutting them down in the Big Ten championship game. And now you got the bye against Alabama, shut them down, made it look like a clinic, 38-3. And now you're facing a team that you beat. You feel all the confidence in the world, but Indiana also has the pressure of saying, can they maintain the perfect season? And that's what's going to get into their head with their slightly inflated ego for knocking off Alabama. But I think they can do it. I think they can find a way of squeaking this one out. But like the 3.5, I think that kind of holds true.
Like, the thing is look, Indiana has a really, really stingy defense. Really stingy defense. Their defense has never not shown up in any of these games. I've never seen them not show up. And like, every time they've been tested, every single time, including on the road against Oregon earlier this year. And that game wasn't even really close. They won 30-20, but it was probably even like a bigger blowout than that. And I just think Indiana is the most fundamentally sound team in college football this year. The most fundamentally sound. The 3.5 might scare me a little bit because, look, Oregon is a really, really good team. They just blew out Texas Tech 23-0. I don't know if that game says more about Texas Tech or about Oregon, probably a little bit of both. But and maybe they're going to make some crazy run like Ohio State did last year. But from the way I see it is I just think Indiana right now, until proven otherwise, I just think they're the more fundamentally sound team. They rarely make mistakes. Their defense never gives up a lot of points. They're great on both sides of the ball. And they're not a team like every other team seems to have some type of fatal flaw, whereas Indiana just doesn't. They almost seem flawless. It's also like the best story. I mean, this is a totally different story. It totally besides the point. They're also like the best story in college football right now. They've got to be. I mean, they're going to have to make movies about this Indiana team.
Yeah, I think it's setting up for a perfect Hollywood script. But I think we can't forget the Penn State game where they had to do a 2-minute drive, and then their offense had like a holding penalty that backed them up and took a couple sacks, and then somehow drove the length of the field to win that game. And at the same time, that Penn State team was basically without a head coach and without a starting quarterback, and they had to do that. So it's every great team has that blip. So we're just we can't ignore it, but it's a point that we have to look at where it's like, does that happen to this game when they play Oregon, where they might start out slow, but also at the same time, Oregon does the same exact thing where they start out slow and they slowly ramp up. So we're going to get like two slowly moving freight trains coming at each other, but they're not going to pick up speed until the second half.
Yeah, I think that Oregon will – one of the biggest keys is that Oregon's going to have to run the ball effectively. And they're like that's why they're so good, is because they run the ball so effectively. They might be the best running team in the Big Ten statistically. I could be wrong about that. But I think that Indiana's defense will give them a lot of trouble when they're trying to run the ball. I think Indiana's defense will give them a lot of trouble. They don't give up a lot of yardage. And that tends to be true earlier in the games because defenses tire out later in the games a lot more than the offenses do. I can see later in the game Oregon being able to run the ball a little more effectively. But if Oregon can't run the ball effectively early in the game, I think Indiana has a huge advantage. I think that Oregon might have the Indiana might have the advantage in every category. First of all, I think they're more fundamentally sound. I think they probably have a slightly better quarterback. I think they probably have a slightly better defense. I don't think they're substantially better than a team like that. I wouldn't say they're unequivocally better or anything like that, but I just think they have an advantage in more ways.
It's like they're not even an underdog to even put it at that point. It's like they don't have the 5-star recruits. They're not flashy. It's like guys getting together saying, we can do something special at this institution that we're at. We're not a football powerhouse like the Oregons, Ohio States, Michigans, USCs, LSUs of the world. We're just guys who love the game and trying to make a statement out of it. That's all that this team is really trying to do.
Yeah, and I think Indiana is, and I was talking about this on the last show, like Kurt Cignetti, has any college football coach changed the landscape of college football the way Kurt Cignetti has? I mean, you look at Nick Saban. Nick Saban he changed the landscape of the SEC. He set it up so that like coaches had almost like impossible, unrealistic standards in the SEC. Kurt Cignetti did that for the rest of college football. I mean, like now other ADs are looking at their coaches and saying like, oh, you have no excuse. Look what Kurt Cignetti was able to do at Indiana in only 2 years. Like, that's how amazing of a job Cignetti has done at Indiana.
Now, if we look at their, 2 seasons as a whole, they did have some key Big Ten teams that they went up against. Like last year, they played Michigan and won similar fashion how they did against Penn State this year, 20-15. But again, every team has that. We're just going to make it a standard. Like a lot of the great teams have it. They lose to Ohio State in the shoe last year, but they beat Ohio State this year. So it's like them being on the road in that environment is tough to do. It's tough to win. But if you look at the first half of that game alone, they were right there with Ohio State. They just got beat because of talent, and they found a way to adapt and to beat Ohio State, to apply pressure, because Ohio State this year really didn't have teams that created pressure on the offense to make them play physical games or make tough decisions down the field. And on top of that, like, I don't think they didn't have to face, I want to say USC last year. But now if you look at like next year, it's not an easy road for their schedule, if you're looking up to it, I think they get Ohio State again, Oregon, and Michigan. Like Michigan just got their head coach who basically coached at Utah, which is now going to be a defense of powerhouse. I wouldn't say powerhouse, but mindset going into Michigan, which they like to do. They like to run the football at you and be physical, which goes great with that coaching hire. So it's going to be very interesting if Indiana can pull something off next year after capping off whatever ends up happening this season.
Well, I know that Josh Hoover is going to be in Indiana next year. And I don't think he's Fernando Mendoza, but who knows? I mean, Fernando Mendoza wasn't Fernando Mendoza last year. So, by the way, how long has Josh Hoover been in college? It feels like he's been at TCU forever. How is he still eligible?
The COVID era just throws everything out the window. You'd be like you still got years of eligibility.
You have like a decade of eligibility. It's completely crazy. But yes, he will be. And Indiana last year, they were good. They were a good team, but they were not a great team. They didn't really. I think they rode high off an easy schedule, and I give them. And don't get me wrong, they blew out most of those teams, but after Curtis Rourke had his hand injury, I'm not sure they were exactly the same team. And every really good team that they played, they lost by a really big margin. They didn't even beat a 7-5 Michigan team by much. I mean, they didn't even look good against that team. This year, and going into this year, I thought it might be a similar story, but it's not. Like this year, Indiana was just on a whole nother level. And I still think there might be a little bit overlooking of Indiana because we're not used to Indiana being a relevant football team.
I think the biggest thing that I wouldn't say haven't passed over, but the game when they played Illinois, dropping 63 points and holding Illinois to 10. That is so impressive. But if you flip the script when Ohio State played Illinois, it wasn't even close. It was like 34 to 10. So you just see how aggressive this Indiana team is. They're just hungry. They're getting after it. I don't know. It's like a perfect storm that they just ended up stepping upon.
Yeah, it looks like. They're just so. You're right. Like they've had a few blips on the radar and things like that. No team hasn't, but if you look at the upsides of what Indiana's done this year, I just think they have the best wins in the nation. I mean, what other team has better wins than Indiana does? What team exposes their opponent's weaknesses as well as Indiana? I don't think any team does. Like there are some good teams. I think Alabama was a good team, but they couldn't expose teams' weaknesses. They were just kind of one-dimensional, and that's why Indiana blew them out. Like they're just strategically speaking, I just don't think there's any team on the same level as Indiana. I'm not saying they're necessarily the most talented, but Ohio State's probably the most talented. But just they might be the most well-coached, the most fundamentally sound. Like just every sort of technical aspect of the game, Indiana just seems to be the best.
Like I feel like the only thing that's probably going to take them out in this game outside of mistakes is like a critical injury that will probably unravel. But even still, they would find a way to somehow pull that off without a key player. But it can only go so far depending what point the injury occurs in the game.
Yeah, and also just talking about the playoffs, like before we get into our picks, why are the two semifinals games? I mean, I think I know the answer, but on a Thursday and a Friday. I mean, college football, the entire regular season was played on Saturdays. The entire regular season. And then the semifinals, we have that on a Thursday, the other on a Friday, and then the national championship on a Monday. Like this is totally ridiculous. Like the Friday is fine. A Thursday night game for a semifinals game? Imagine playing the AFC or NFC championship games on a Thursday night. I mean, I think it's to avoid the NFL. But like I can't
agree with
stand
that.
the calendar.
I mean, the Monday night for national championship, I think has been there for a little bit for the last couple playoffs here and there. But
Yeah.
me as a fan, why am I staying up late Monday night when I could watch it on a Sunday, if not Saturday? Saturday makes the most sense because think about all the college kids that want to go out, and you
Yeah.
realize if my school doesn't shut down, I got classes at 2 on Tuesday, but here am
Yeah.
I storming my campus bar.
Well, yeah, like, well, yeah, that's like, well, yeah, because obviously it's college, so the college kids there. But also, I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the viewer in general. It doesn't make any sense. The Super Bowl would never be played on a Monday. I mean, whenever there's a one-game championship, I mean, although in basketball, they do college basketball, they do the same thing. They play, which makes even less sense because they're not competing with anything. In college football, I think it's obviously just because they don't want to compete with the NFL, and the NFL has just claimed all those games. For me, I don't really care. I'd rather watch the semifinals over the NFL playoffs anyway. All else, unless it's like, one game's a blowout or whatever. But all else being equal, I'll choose the college football semifinals game over the first round of the NFL playoffs. But obviously, I think they just don't want to. They want to get out of the NFL's way. It seems like, if anything, it might make more sense to play both games on the Friday and just play one right after the other.
Yeah, with the whole time zone shift between West and East, I think you can do it.
Yeah.
Like you would have to start the East Coast game like 6:30, give or take. But then the West Coast game is like 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But it's on a Friday. I think you can get away with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get away. Yeah, you can a little more. I mean, a lot of times people complain about like, oh, these games start too late. And I just don't. I mean, I understand it if you have to. Look, I understand it if you like work really early in the morning. And I understand it on like weeknights a little bit. But I also sleep through all the 1 o'clock games, so I don't have that much sympathy. Like, I just don't care that much. I mean, that's just a lot of times people say, well, the kids have to go to bed. I mean, it's not targeted at kids. It's mostly targeted at adults who can stay up as late as they want.
Yeah. I think the games would have to be like 7:15 on the East Coast and then 10:15 for like the West Coast game. And if they keep it that way, that's fine. But if they ever had the line where you had the orange and the peach that happened, then you kind of have to split up between 2 days. I don't think you can do 2 games running at the same time.
Yeah. All right. So what's our official picks in this game?
I'm going to go with Indiana, even though that large, I wouldn't say number, but idea trying to beat a team twice in a year is tough. It does hold true. It does have some weight, and I don't want to overlook it. But like you said, Indiana's the team that could beat a team a second time around if they had to. And I think they're right there. But also they gotta play mistake free because Oregon will capitalize on mistakes. But if they played how they've been playing against Ohio State and Alabama, they're fine in this game.
Yeah.
Play how they've been playing technical football, heart sound, willing to go the length of the field, 2-minute drive to win, they're fine. As soon as they start making mistakes and feeling the pressure, it's going to start to shift slowly towards Oregon's favor.
Yeah, I think the same is true. The same thing is true of the reverse, though, which is Oregon also has to play mistake-free football, and Indiana capitalizes on mistakes better than anybody. And I think if you look at the two teams, Indiana's more likely to play mistake-free football than Oregon is. I think in all likelihood, Indiana will make fewer mistakes. And I like Indiana. I'm taking Indiana minus 3.5. And I'm also going to go with the under because if they play this game on Indiana's terms, the game will probably be under 46.5. That's how they've won all. Like Indiana, they don't really win games in shootouts very much. Most of the times that they've won have been in lower scoring games. like against Ohio State and against Alabama. Although, I mean, they scored a lot, but Alabama couldn't score. So that just tends to be how they would win this game. If they were to win this game, that's probably how they would win it. If this game is a shootout, I think Oregon's a little more. I think that would favor Oregon a little bit more. But if Indiana plays the way they typically do, I think this is an under game.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, even if you want to look at like the last time that they played, what? I think it was like close to like 50 combined points, give or take.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like 46.5 is like, it's right in that ballpark where it could go either way. I definitely do agree with the under as of games as of late. So we're gonna stick with the under on this one.
All right. All right. Wait, did Zan send in his picks? Let me see.
Say he did.
It's all right. It doesn't matter. We can just track it. All right. Did he send them? I can ask.
It was same as what? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think I might actually be winning the. So I have a question. What should we do on Forever Power 5 as the punishment for whoever had the worst picking record? And here was my idea. This was my idea.
Okay.
My idea was we Saddam Hussein them. That was my idea.
Elaborate.
Okay, so oh, okay. Oh, so he did. So the Saddam Hussein trend. Okay, so he did send in his picks. That's my bad then. Then let me let me read them then. Zan. I don't know. I don't see it. All right, it's all right. So the Saddam Hussein trend on TikTok. It's when I don't know if you know about it. It's when like it shows the lowlights of a team or a player or a coach or something like that with Saddam Hussein music in the background. I mean, it has nothing. The music, the song itself is just an Arabic song. I think it has nothing to do with Saddam Hussein, but they show like Saddam Hussein in the background and like the lowlights of the player. It's like there was one for like DJ Lagway and with like all the interceptions thrown. So I was thinking we do the Saddam Hussein music and showing clips of some of their worst picks.
Oh, I think that would be quite funny to watch.
My only issue is maybe the trend has died down a little bit. Like I don't know how big of a thing it is now, but I don't know. I feel like when trends are really big, even though it's died down a little, I think that could still be pretty funny, and I still think it could still work.
It probably could still work.
I don't know who would be getting Saddam Hussein at this point if Zan is watching. Zan, who has the worst record on FP5? All right, he's taken Ole Miss plus 3.5 and Indiana -4 and the over. All right, so the same picks as he's taking the same picks as me. I just want to see who has the worst record. I think that would be really funny. It would be a lot of work.
Yeah, but I think it's all worth it in the end.
I think it would be funny if we Saddam Hussein the worst picker.
And it's like they're really hyped up about like a certain team. Like this was a great pick. You should go with them, and then have the music in the background,
and then maybe show like the highlight of how the game actually ended.
Yes. Like if it's a missed field goal off to the right.
I think that's a good. I think that might be a good punishment, but it's going to take a lot of digging to find the best ones. All right, so the game I think is going to start in like 10 minutes. I think we could probably hop off now.
I think we can.
Yeah, I think that's enough. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This was Forever Power 5 combined with Gridiron Gridlocks. Whose Gridiron was first? Gridiron Gridlocks or Gridiron Gurus?
Gurus was first.
Gurus was first. Okay.
Yep. And we were just going to like keep the theme going because we're like, it's still like a football show. So we're like saying, let's just branch it off slightly to focus more on college football.
All right. So I think we have one or two more FP5 shows. I'm going to be traveling next week, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do the pre-national championship one. maybe we'll have one or two more left. I mean, I think I can only really do one more. There's not that much more to discuss other than the national championship game after this show. So see you guys, I guess, in 1 or 2 weeks, possibly, on FP5. When's your next show?
My next show will be next Saturday, leading up to the national championship game, and then maybe throwing a little bit of college hoops in there to bypass some of the time. So a nice little slowly transition into college hoops.
All right, it's interesting. So your show is Gridiron Gridlocks, and it's just college football and then college basketball?
Yep. The summer is going to be quite interesting because there's not much college sports. So there was talks about throwing, women's college softball in the mix. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to do that.
Yeah.
The worst record is Will with 73 wins. Okay, so I have to go digging for who. I wonder what Will would think about getting Saddam Hussein.
Does he have a chance to pull it back for the remaining 3 games, or he's not in the picture of pulling it back?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Zain's keeping track of.
He could have the greatest Cinderella run where he comes from last to first.
Well, at this point, that's kind of impossible. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Saddam Hussein trend. I think I'm going to go with that one. But yeah, all right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And by the way, college basketball is I can't get into college basketball until late January because I'm so preoccupied with football. I can't do it until college football's over.
Yep. Which at that point you're getting the conference play and then rounding up to conference tournament.
And at that point, I feel so far behind. I'm like, Jesus, I feel like I missed. It's like tuning into a reality TV show, late in the season. You're you don't know anything that happened beforehand. I feel left out with college basketball.
It's which team is good?
It's not like college football where I'm watching it from the time they play in Ireland. In basketball, it's I miss most of the season.
Yeah. And then sometimes the games happen during the day. It's I'm at work. I can't watch.
Yeah. All right. See you guys in 2 weeks or whenever. This is Forever Power 5 combined with Gridiron Gridlocks. This is Forever Gridlocks. See you next time.